Have you ever felt at the mercy of your emotions, as if they were taking control of your life, determining your thoughts, actions, and even your happiness? Maybe it's that burst of anger that seems impossible to contain, the sadness that paralyzes your days, or the anxiety that eats away at your inner peace. Now, imagine a version of yourself that remains calm amidst chaos, responds wisely to the most difficult situations, and finds serenity even in the midst of storms. Seems impossible? For the Stoics, it's not. Stoicism, a practical and powerful philosophy that has endured for centuries, offers us a clear guide to dealing with emotions and living a life of virtue, balance, and control. In a world where we are bombarded with stimuli, criticism, challenges, and uncertainties, Stoicism is more relevant than ever. It's not just about suppressing emotions or being strong. It's about understanding your emotions, recognizing their origin, and consciously choosing how to respond to them. In this video, we will explore 7 Stoic principles that have the power to transform the way you handle your emotions. Each principle is a gem of wisdom that can help you achieve the inner serenity you desire. The last principle, which I will reveal at the end, is the most powerful of all, and applying it can be a turning point in your emotional life. So, stay with me. Remember, you are not a prisoner of your emotions. They don't have to control your life. Take a deep breath, open your mind, and let's embark on this transformative journey together. If you've never heard of this philosophy, or only have a superficial idea, let's start with a clear overview. Stoicism is more than just a philosophy. It is a practical way of living. It originated in ancient Greece but found its greatest exponents in Rome, such as Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, Seneca, the politician and writer, and Epictetus, a former slave who became one of Stoicism's greatest teachers. These thinkers did not talk about abstract ideas or theories that only worked on paper. They spoke about real life, how to deal with loss, criticism, frustration, and even death. For the Stoics, the goal was not to avoid life's difficulties, but to learn to face them with virtue and tranquility. Why is Stoicism so powerful? Stoicism teaches that, while we cannot control what happens around us, the behavior of others, external events, or even unexpected challenges, we can always control how we react to these situations. It gives us the power to choose our responses, decide how to interpret what happens to us, and live with dignity, even when the world seems to be falling apart. Today, in a society where emotions often take control, where we are encouraged to react impulsively, and where external noise dominates, Stoicism serves as an anchor. It invites us to slow down, reflect, and take charge of our emotional lives. In this video, we will dive deep into the 7 fundamental Stoic principles for emotional control. Each principle is an invitation to practice, reflect, and transform. Before we begin, I want you to think about a recent moment when your emotions took over. Maybe it was an argument, a criticism that shook you, or a decision made in the heat of the moment. Now, imagine how different it would have been if you had the right tools to handle those emotions. That's what Stoicism can offer you. Principle 1. Control what is within your power. One of the most fundamental teachings of Stoicism is the distinction between what we can control and what is beyond our control. Think about how many times you've stressed over something you couldn't change. Maybe it was someone else's behavior, traffic, or even the weather. For the Stoics, focusing on what we cannot control is a recipe for frustration and suffering. Epictetus said, "Some things are within our control and others are not." The secret to emotional control lies in accepting this simple yet profound truth. When you stop wasting energy trying to control the uncontrollable, you start redirecting that energy to where it truly matters: your own actions, thoughts, and choices. Practice the following. When something happens, ask yourself, is this within my control? If it isn't, allow yourself to let go. Focus on what you can do in the moment. This shift in focus is liberating and completely transforms how you face life's challenges. Principle 2. The discipline of perception. It is not events that disturb us, but the judgments we make about them. This quote from Epictetus is one of the most powerful in Stoicism. What does it mean? That it's not what happens that causes our emotions, but how we interpret what happens. Imagine someone criticizes you. The criticism itself is just a neutral event. What causes your anger or sadness is the meaning you assign to it. Maybe you think, this person is disrespecting me, or I'm not good enough. But what if you changed that perception? What if you saw the criticism as an opportunity for growth or as something irrelevant coming from someone who doesn't truly know your worth? This is the discipline of perception, learning to question your judgments and choosing more useful and positive interpretations. Principle 3. Embrace adversity as a learning opportunity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This principle is a true gem of Stoicism. It teaches us that every challenge, every obstacle, is an opportunity for learning and growth. When we face difficulties, our initial reaction might be resistance or frustration, but the Stoics invite us to look beyond that. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this situation? How can I use it to become a better person? This shift in perspective not only reduces the emotional impact of challenges, but also turns difficulties into stepping stones for growth. Principle 4. Live in the present moment. Anxiety, regret, fear of the future, all these emotions have one thing in common. They pull us away from the present. The Stoics remind us that the only moment we truly have is now. Being present means focusing on what you are doing, on what is in front of you. When you learn to live in the present, the negative emotions that come from the past or the future begin to lose their power. Principle 5. Cultivate virtue as your guide. The Stoics believed that virtue is the only true good. To them, virtue means living according to the highest standards of moral and ethical excellence, guided by qualities such as wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. This principle is fundamental for emotional control because when you align your actions with your values, negative emotions lose their grip. Think about moments when you felt anxious or frustrated. Often, these feelings arise because we are disconnected from our values or acting against them. When you cultivate virtue as your guide, your decisions and reactions become clearer and less influenced by emotional impulses. For example, in a conflict situation, instead of reacting with anger or impatience, ask yourself, what is the most virtuous action I can take right now? Perhaps it's responding with patience, seeking a fair solution, or simply staying calm. This approach not only reduces the emotional impact of the situation, but also strengthens your character. The Stoics invite us to see each day as an opportunity to practice virtue, even in small actions. And this constant practice builds a state of emotional balance over time. Principle 6. Memento Mori. Remember your mortality. It may seem strange to associate the idea of death with emotional control, but for the Stoics, remembering one's mortality is one of the most powerful tools for finding inner peace. The principle of Memento Mori reminds us that life is finite, helping us put our worries and emotions into perspective. Often, we get caught up in intense emotions, anger, anxiety, resentment, because we forget to look at the bigger picture. When you remember that your life is limited, you realize that many of the things that trouble you aren't that important after all. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." This quote invites us to live with intention, focusing on what truly matters and letting go of the trivial. Whenever you feel overwhelmed by a negative emotion, stop and reflect. If today were my last day, would I spend my time on this? This simple exercise can help you redirect your energy to what really matters and find serenity in difficult moments. Principle 7. Love Fati. Accept what is. The final and most transformative principle of Stoicism is Love Fati, which means love your fate. It's not just about accepting what happens, but embracing it as an essential part of your growth and learning. When you resist life's circumstances, you create emotional suffering. But when you learn to accept and even love what happens, you find freedom. Marcus Aurelius said, Embrace everything that happens to you willingly for what could better suit your needs. Love Fati invites us to see every event, whether good or bad, as an opportunity. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" This shift in perspective is powerful and can turn even the most difficult situations into catalysts for emotional and spiritual growth. For example, if you face rejection or failure, practice Love Fati by seeing it as a chance to re-evaluate, grow, and strengthen yourself. When you learn to love what is, you find peace, no matter what life brings. Now that we've explored the 7 Stoic principles for emotional control, I hope you've realized the transformative power of this philosophy. Stoicism is not just a set of ideas, it is a practical guide to living a life of balance, virtue, and serenity. Remember, emotional control doesn't mean suppressing your feelings, but rather understanding them, accepting them, and choosing how to respond. It's a daily process that requires practice and patience, but every small step in this direction makes a huge difference. These Stoic principles are like tools you can use every day to build a more balanced and meaningful life. They are an invitation to reflection, practice, and transformation. Before we wrap up, I have a challenge for you. Choose one of these principles to start practicing today. Maybe you decide to focus on what you can control, or apply Love Fati in a difficult situation. Whatever your choice, take the first step because change starts with small, consistent actions. Finally, thank you for joining me on this Stoic journey. If this video resonated with you, share it with someone who could also benefit from this ancient wisdom. And in the comments, tell me which principle you liked the most and how you plan to apply it in your life. As Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul is dyed with the color of its thoughts." May your thoughts be guided by virtue, serenity, and wisdom. See you next time.